Imagine a life where dreams of freedom and fame twist into a nightmare of crime and violence. Bronson Ellery's tale is one of striking contrasts. Once a man who sought redemption, but inevitably spiraled into chaos. His shocking story touches on harrowing elements of domestic violence, criminal exploits, and a tragic ending that left a community reeling. What drove Bronson from aspiring to turn his life around to become a figure shrouded in infamy? Today, we uncover the startling details and unravel the mystery behind the man who couldn't escape his dark past. Bronson Ellery's story will captivate, horrify, and leave you questioning the thin line between hope and despair. This is the electrifying tale of Bronson Ellery, a man of many names and faces. Lizard Man, murderer, Bikey wannabe, failed death metal star. Yet, he was also a man who adored pigeons and spent his downtime at spelling bees. Bronson Ellery, a man who always had to have the most, lived a life that reads like fiction but is shockingly true. Bronson's story begins on Australia's Gold Coast. From a young age, the allure of tattoo culture and the gritty underworld drew him in. Like many young men searching for a sense of belonging, Bronson found his identity through ink. His journey started at 15, covering his arms with elaborate designs. His sister Talitha recalls the day he came home with a neck tattoo in his late teens, nearly getting disowned by their stunned parents. But Bronson didn't stop there. Soon, he sported bats on his face and even inked up his entire chest himself. His early adult years were marred by stints in prison, where he decorated his back and legs with even more tattoos. One of his infamous tattoos was a swastika, which once surfaced during a court hearing. Bronson's defense lawyer dismissed it as a mark of foolishness rather than a sign of Nazi affiliations. "I'm going to have the most," Talitha says of Bronson's relentless pursuit to cover his entire body in ink, including his head and face. His face became a canvas for 6 separate tattoo sessions, followed by 3 rounds of laser removal. The most striking was the giant number 23, his favorite number, emblazoned across his face. He even had his eyelids tattooed. Despite his constant transformations, his facial tattoos hindered his ambitions to climb the ranks of Gold Coast's biker gangs. This is the shocking case of Bronson Ellery, a man who will forever be remembered for his multifaceted, inked legacy. A key source revealed to the Gold Coast Bulletin, "How could you deal with a head like that?" In the drug-dealing world, he was instantly recognizable wherever he went. One major obstacle Bronson faced was the lack of commercial backing from the Bandidos, barring him from the inner sanctum. He was initially with the Bandidos, but ended up drifting on his own. At one point, he mingled with some Hells Angels members. Bronson was easily influenced, and his sister Talitha recalls that his association with the Bandidos' Bickies lasted mere months. By his early 20s, he was out of the club. The Bickies were intrigued by his fearsome look, even if his behavior was far from truly dangerous. Paulus viewed Bronson as a troubled youth, someone who became a prime recruitment target for Gold Coast's biker gangs, but never as an enforcer. Interestingly, it was the police who coined his infamous nickname, Lizard Man. Court records showed that Bronson's offenses were minor and non-violent, especially in his youth. His first charge came in 2010 for altering vehicle registration plates. A year later, he breached parole and was convicted of minor fraud. Bronson's life painted a picture of a man caught between menacing appearances and a turbulent reality. His inked body and fierce look made him a noticeable figure in the underworld, yet his criminal record was a series of petty offenses that hardly depicted a hardened criminal. Ellery's downfall showcases a tragic narrative of a young man swayed by the gravity of notorious gangs, but never fully fitting into their world. His endearing connection to family, shown through his sister Talitha's memories, adds a heart-wrenching layer to his story. Ultimately, Bronson Ellery's tale is a testament to the inner conflicts faced by an individual marked by both the literal and figurative ink of an infamous past. If you're enjoying the story so far, please consider subscribing and liking this video. It helps immensely and supports the channel's growth. In 2013, Bronson's life took another downturn as he lost his driver's license for repeated disqualified driving offenses. Just a month later, he pleaded guilty to possessing dangerous drugs. Both the police and his associates noticed his ongoing battle with methamphetamine addiction. Yet, behind the stark appearance, gang affiliations, and criminal history was a very different Bronson, according to his close friend Nick Blanthorne. Nick offered a contrasting portrait of Bronson. "I'm seeing all these pictures of him with guns, and I just think it's funny," Nick shared. "I'd visit him in the mornings, and the first thing he'd do, before feeding himself, was to feed the pigeons." Bronson's softer side extended into quirky activities. Nick vividly recalled Bronson's sense of humor and kind-heartedness. Bronson even designed a koi fish tattoo for Nick, which he proudly wore on his right arm. After serving a 3.5-month prison term in 2015 for willful damage, attempting to pervert the course of justice and breaching bail, Bronson aimed to leave his criminal life behind and pursue a career in death metal. In 2014, he released music online under the alias Solitary Sun, dreaming of becoming a death metal star. However, the reception wasn't what he had hoped. His YouTube channel received scathing comments, leaving his dream unfulfilled. Despite the harsh critiques, Bronson faced his challenges with an unyielding spirit. He wasn't just a man with a criminal history, he was a person with dreams, humor, and a softer side often hidden behind his imposing facade. Bronson's dreams of fame and fortune seemed increasingly out of reach. In a 2015 interview with Noisy, he spoke candidly about the feedback on his YouTube channel. "I've disabled all comments on my YouTube videos. There are a lot of haters. It's easy to hate. As soon as one person says something negative, the rest follow. It's probably some 15-year-old kids at home who know nothing about music." Despite the negativity, Bronson's confidence remained unshaken. When asked if he believed he was destined for fame, he responded emphatically, 100%. "I've been lying in front of a stereo since I was 2, drumming on pots and pans at 3. Got my first drum kit when I was 5 and started guitar at 7. Bronson's dedication to becoming a death metal star was unwavering, manifesting in his decision to use tattoos as a way to burn bridges with conventional society. "I knew I was never going to do a normal job because I was fully dedicated to music. I just covered myself in tattoos so there was no other option. I didn't care. It makes a statement for the genre of music." However, his music failed to gain traction. The hard rock website Metal Sucks described his work as atrocious, criticizing his music and videos as objectively bad. This harsh reception dealt a heavy blow to Bronson's aspirations, but did little to quell his passion for music. Around this time, Bronson began an on-again, off-again relationship with 18-year-old Chelsea Schilling. The relationship was toxic from the start and culminated in Chelsea taking out a domestic violence order against Bronson in 2015. Bronson was jailed for 3 months for breaching the order, adding another grim chapter to an already tumultuous life. Bronson's life seemed a constant struggle between his fierce exterior and his inner vulnerabilities. His inked body and aggressive music style positioned him as a fearsome figure, but beneath that lay an individual grappling with personal demons and searing ambitions. His persistent drug addiction and run-ins with the law only added to his woes, yet he continued to push forward, driven by his dreams of fame. The tragedy of Bronson Ellery is a layered narrative of a young man caught between the conflicting worlds of aggressive self-expression and societal rejection. His sister Talitha and close friend Nick Blanthorne paint a picture of a man far more complex than his public persona would suggest. His softer side, showcased through quirky activities and moments of genuine kindness, offers glimpses into an unfulfilled potential that remained shadowed by his menacing appearance and troubled history. Ultimately, Bronson's story is a poignant reminder of the battles many face between their public identities and inner realities. His tale underscores the depth and intricacies often hidden beneath a rough exterior, marred by both the literal and metaphorical ink of a challenging past. With his music career floundering and his relationship deteriorating, Bronson began to spiral out of control. A source from Gold Coast's underworld noted that the couple was obsessed with their demise. Worried about his friend, Michael Warburton visited Bronson's home to offer comfort, bringing his rifle and ammunition just in case. Chelsea's mother, Bonnie Mobbs, observed that Bronson was hitting prescription drugs hard and becoming increasingly volatile. Her father, Ozzie Schilling, noted that Bronson grew more controlling, isolating Chelsea from her friends. Bronson's story is a stark reminder that the road to fame is often fraught with personal battles and unfulfilled dreams, leaving behind a trail of chaos and controversy. Bronson's paranoia knew no bounds. He held Chelsea captive, obsessively going through her phone, questioning her every move. Desperate for an escape, Chelsea obtained a domestic violence order against him. She transformed her appearance, shearing off all her hair, changing her phone number multiple times, deactivating her Facebook profile, changing jobs, and even moving house. A domestic violence support service helped her go into hiding. She first found safety in a protected facility and later at a friend's house off the Gold Coast. Yet, as is tragically common in toxic relationships, the two found their way back to each other. Despite Bronson's claims that his criminal days were behind him, late 2016 saw him embroiled in another violent escapade. Police allege that Bronson, along with another man, stormed a Highland Park house, wielding a sawn-off bolt-action rifle and a machete. They threatened the terrified residents, ransacking the property and taking several items. Bronson reportedly sat the victims in the lounge and menacingly warned them that he would chop them up or put a bullet in them if they contacted the police. When the homeowner returned, Bronson pointed a firearm at him and declared, "Don't you know who I am? I'm Bronson, the solitary son." He and his accomplice then allegedly drove away in the homeowner's car. Interestingly, former reality TV contestant Christopher Paul Loden was reportedly in the stolen car with Bronson that night. The two had bonded over their criminal exploits and mutual stints in prison. Loden, known from Australia's World's Strictest Parents at 16, later admitted to being a passenger in the stolen car, but denied any role in its theft. A few days after the robbery, on November 9, 2016, Chelsea and several others, including Loden and Jasmine O'Neill, gathered at Bronson's apartment. A heated argument erupted between Bronson and Chelsea, escalating quickly. The friends, sensing the tension, left the living room to avoid the conflict. When the noise finally subsided, the guests cautiously ventured back into the living room. There, they were confronted with a nightmarish scene. Chelsea lay face down in a pool of blood, beaten to death. In a chilling and unusual turn of events, no one called for help. The witnesses stood paralyzed in shock, the magnitude of what had just occurred sinking in but not propelling them to action. The failure to call the police added another layer of horror to an already tragic story. Bronson's tale is a haunting reminder of the deadly paths forged by toxic relationships and unrestrained paranoia. What began with hopes of fame and redemption ended in a grisly tragedy that no one could or would prevent. One of the guests eventually reached out to check for a pulse on Chelsea, but it was too late. She was gone. Not long after, Michael Warburton arrived at the scene to find Bronson in utter despair. Michael held his distraught friend for an hour, offering comfort. Bronson then confided, "I promised her I would go with her." Determined to fulfill his grim vow, Bronson changed into his best suit, put on his favorite song, set up a full-length mirror in the living room, and laid down in front of it. What Christopher and Jasmine were doing during this time remains unknown. When Michael finally left, the guests departed too, leaving Bronson and Chelsea behind without notifying anyone. They stayed silent for days. On November 11th, Nick Blanthorne came to visit Bronson, only to find the bodies. It was a heart-wrenching discovery. The last time Chelsea's family had heard from her was a call a few days earlier, intending to come over for dinner, a visit she never made. A note from Bronson to Chelsea's family was found in her handbag. The message read, "I'm sorry for taking your daughter's life. She loved you very much." This discovery prompted a large-scale police investigation. Officers combed through the unit, interviewing witnesses and piecing together the couple's tragic story. The investigation delved deep into Bronson's criminal past and his affiliations with the Bandidos Bikies, aiming to uncover the motivations behind the killing. Initial reports speculated a possible double murder, tied to Bronson's rumored efforts to establish a chapter for the infamous European Bikey gang, Sachidara. However, it soon became clear that this was not a hit. A list of potential recruits for the outlaw motorcycle gang was found in Bronson's unit, hinting at his troubled ambitions. 5 days after the bodies were discovered, Jasmine O'Neill came forward and spoke to the police. Her lawyer informed the Gold Coast Bulletin that Jasmine wanted to provide Chelsea's family with cash. Local detectives also investigated the source of the drugs Bronson used for his fatal injection, yet no charges were filed in connection to his death. Unlike other states, Queensland lacks a bystander responsibility law, which means the witnesses present during the murder cannot be prosecuted for failing to intervene. In the aftermath, Chelsea's mother, Bonnie, shared a poem and a note on Facebook that Chelsea had written. The note starkly read, "I'm sorry to be so negative, but I want everyone to know that if I get hurt or die, Bronson Ellery is responsible." Bonnie added that Chelsea had written this when Bronson was in jail, fearful for her life. This poignant story serves as a tragic reminder of the devastating consequences of toxic relationships and the silences that can follow unspeakable violence. In the aftermath of Chelsea's murder, the Schilling family was desperate for answers. They questioned why their beloved daughter had been at Bronson's apartment that fateful night. Had Bronson forcibly taken her, or had she gone willingly? They demanded an inquiry from the coroner, hoping to uncover the truth behind their daughter's tragic death. They needed closure and accountability. The family implored authorities to investigate how Chelsea ended up at Bronson's unit and to confront the 3 individuals who were present that night. They needed to look these people in the eye and understand what transpired. Chelsea had dreams, ambitions, and a diligent spirit that promised a bright future. She was deeply loved by her family and friends, who will forever remember the joy she brought to their lives. This tragic tale concludes here. Thank you for staying with us through this heart-wrenching journey. Until next time, take care.